Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week we cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiphany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. Now, let's get started on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome to For the Record, your unfiltered view on surviving in aesthetics. I'm your host, Tiphany Lopez, and we have a very special guest today. A dear friend of mine is joining us, Ms. Kim Welch. She is a registered nurse in Texas, soon to be a nurse practitioner.
Working on it.
Very, very soon. And she's the owner of Esperance Wellness, which is a full aesthetics wellness clinic. And we've been friends for, I don't know, Kim, 5-6 years?
At least.
It seems like a long time.
Yeah.
And we have done a lot of things together, a lot of training through GAIN. You've gone to Sweden since we've been friends to do some international nursing work. You've been on lots of advisory boards. You've been training nonstop since the day I met you.
Yes.
So you have lots of things to talk about with us today. We're going to cover with Kim a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about her business, her new foray into becoming a nurse practitioner, and also she and her husband work together in their practice and talk about how your marriage can survive working together, which is actually a pretty contentious topic with a lot of people. So you guys do it really well. So we're going to figure out the secrets to how this works.
Let's do it.
So Kim, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We're glad to have you. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of what's going on in Kim Welch land.
Yes. Well, you nailed it. My biggest focus right now is getting through nursing school, nurse practitioner school. And 25 years later, 3 kids later, 20 years of marriage later, that's a bigger challenge than I realized. But
yeah,
we're pushing along. Every class is one more check done. So that's exciting. And it's worth it. It really is. At least it will be, right? I mean, it's going to be worth it.
You know, as someone who's done 3 degrees, I don't know.
Right.
It's like I think about the PhD. Should I have actually done that? But I think in the long run, it's for sure worth it. You'll be glad you did it.
Yeah, I think so. It'll be good. Yeah, so we're just raising kids, especially through this pandemic, and keeping the business open and continuing training even through all this. Training looks different, of course, but we're still doing it and making it through school 1 class at a time.
2 boys who are twins
Yes.
and a daughter.
Yes.
She's got 3 kids, people. So she's doing nursing school, nurse practitioner school, owns a clinic, 3 children, has a happy marriage, trains people all the time, and still looks beautiful. So if you are listening to us, you can't tell, but she's got full hair and makeup today. So better than any of us are doing, I'm sure. Well, I got lots of questions for you, so we're going to go ahead and kick this off.
Let's do it.
So tell us how, just to kind of paint the picture of your life, how you ended up from a nursing career, probably in traditional nursing, into aesthetics specifically.
That was a long time ago. So I graduated almost 25 years ago from nursing school, and I started out in pediatrics. It's the beautiful thing about a nursing career. Like, it's never a wrong decision to be a nurse. There's so many things that you can do as a nurse. And so I started out in pediatric emergency care at Dallas Children's Hospital, and I loved every minute of it. I've had a lot of different jobs over the years. I have done pediatrics, emergency, adult emergency, transplants, home health, all of it. And I think all of it really brought me to a point where I realized that aesthetics was something that I was going to love and be good at. I think in the back of my mind, I always loved beauty and science, and it made sense to me. And 15 years ago, aesthetics really wasn't what it is now.
It wasn't a thing yet.
That's right.
Actually,
Yeah, exactly. And so I just felt like I had 3. The boys had just been born. They're 15. They're almost 15 in September, and they were just born. And I needed something that wasn't those 12-hour shifts that was exhausting me, whether I was at home or not. I was exhausted all the time. And so aesthetics just seemed like a good segue for me into something that I loved, something that was beautiful, something that was encouraging to other people, and met a lot of the needs of my life at the time. So it was a good transition for me.
And then you went into a dermatology practice, if I'm not mistaken.
I actually started at a med spa.
Ah, okay.
I did. And to get in, so this is what I did. I wanted it so bad. I just sold myself on my ability to work with needles.
Well, pediatrics, I think that's
an emergency. I was an emergency room.
Yes, I think that's the thing
absolutely.
that people. I've trained obviously through other companies, a lot of people, and I would always tell them, if you can work with a baby and do pediatrics or even an emergency situation, you can probably give someone Botox. Like
That's
you
right.
have a gentle enough approach that you can probably make this work. So you had all the
I've
right,
never heard that before.
you
That
had all
makes
the
sense,
recipes
though.
together to make this perfectly work for you. So,
But that's how I sold myself, was my ability to work with needles and just my passion for people and beauty and all of it together. So got my foot in the door that way and loved it. I think, as you and I have known through the years, like, you either love it or you don't. Everybody thinks they're going to love it until they start. And then they're like, oh no, this isn't for me for one reason or the other. But I was one of those people that loved it right out of the gate. So,
well, they're either going to love it or they're going to get rich. And I'm like, you're not going to get rich here. Not without a whole lot of work.
Oh, that's what they think. That's right. Yeah.
They're going to love this and they're going to get rich and it's going to be like the best life ever. And I'm like, these are grueling. I mean, from building a practice, these are grueling days, both as an industry person and then as the injector. It's
physically and mentally, right? I mean, like, you got to have your mental game on.
And patients are draining. The
yes.
patients can be so can the nurses. No, I'm kidding.
That's right.
They can't. I'm just kidding.
Of us.
Okay, so we know that you obviously have had lots of nursing background, but let's transition to kind of the entrepreneurial part of your business and your life.
Yeah.
So you decide to go out on your own after you've realized that you're good with needles. You go out on your own and you build your own practice, Grace Inspired Beauty, which was maybe Kim Welch RN at some point.
It's been several things.
But but I think you did the smart thing. You said, I'm bringing someone else on. I can't have my name on it, which I think is brilliant. So had you ever been an entrepreneur before? Had you owned a business? Had you done anything business minded before you decided to open a practice?
The funny thing is, I don't consider myself an entrepreneur. And yet when you ask me that question, I look at my life and I think, oh, well, I did have that jewelry business for 5 years. Oh, and then I baked for several years. And like, I had so many businesses. So I don't consider myself, I've never, like, if you asked me if I was an entrepreneur, I would say no. I'm a medical person, right? But looking back at my life, I'm like, oh no, there was always something there that said, I think I can do this better, or I can do this different. And this is something that's personal to me. And I want that freedom, or whatever it was that was calling me. But lots of entrepreneurial small businesses in my background, if I really look at it. It's funny. I made overalls. I mean, I did everything.
Well, you're into beauty, right? Overalls were surely a trend, maybe in the late 80s.
Oh, gosh.
Just kidding. So, okay, thinking about you being an entrepreneur. So just for the audience who's listening, Kim is probably one of the kindest people I've ever known. Like, genuine, sweet, wonderful heart that has always positive intentions, does the right thing. And like, you're just like the kindest human I've ever known. Tiphany. So I think about people who are entrepreneurs have to be like sharks in the tank, you know, like you got to be, I don't want to say mean, but kind of cutthroat. And you've somehow managed to do it and do it really well and maintain this like kind, sweet, wonderful approach. So first of all, off the record here, how do you manage to do that?
That's a really good question. Nobody's ever said that to me. Thank you for that compliment.
Everyone knows she's the best. Trust me.
Whatever. But no, I think you're right. I think that sometimes I don't feel like I have that, gut instinct to like be the shark in the water. And so I have had to surround myself with people that I can say, is this appropriate? Is this the right decision? And just that collaboration of people around me that I've gotten to know. And so that I can say, this is my best yes, like this hurts me to make this decision, whether it's yes or no or whatever, but I've had to look at decisions and go, if I say yes to this, who else am I saying no to? Mm-hmm. And so whether that's an employee or a time decision or whatever. And so I've had to take it from that approach, not necessarily that it's a selfish reason, but if I say yes to this, who are all the other people and all the other things I'm saying no to? So I've had to take it from that approach.
I just was writing a lecture for another event about opportunity cost. And people sometimes forget that. I think about cash, like buying inventory. If you buy filler A, you have no cash left to buy a device or filler B or toxin C or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. You get so many, it's like a savings account. You get so many good decisions and those affect other people. And if you take the money out of one and give it to the other, then, you're kind of left holding the bag, if you will.
Especially with time, right? Time is our most valuable commodity. And we do have to think about the time that we spend and who we spend it with. And every time we say yes to this person or this thing or this work or whatever, who's sacrificing to make that time possible? And it's worth it when you have that in mind, that filter put in place.
Well, that's why we're having an unfiltered view here.
That's right.
We're going to peel back the layers, people. Okay, so I'm going to go back to thinking through one of the hardest discussions I have with nurses who are thinking about their own practice is about a medical director. Yeah. All the rules, all the laws in Texas. And so that's kind of a cutthroat conversation because oftentimes medical directors, they want to get paid a lot. They want, supervisory, roles, responsibilities, whatever that is. How did you figure all that out as a new entrepreneur coming into this space, from more of a hospital type background, how did you figure out medical director, the contracting, all that stuff?
It's definitely not my expertise. I'll start with that. I'll just be authentic about that. But I did, even 5 years ago, 4 to 5 years ago, when I went out on my own and needed a medical director, I don't think we had even some of the regulations that we have in place now, right? So for me, looking for a medical director, I really felt like I needed someone that was like-minded in what I was trying to accomplish, and believed in me and what I was doing and trusted me. And like, those are the things that are valuable to me, and knew what I brought to the table also, right? Like that I wasn't going to be a renegade person and do things just to do them. There was always a purpose and a reason and a passion behind what I did. And so I needed someone that had that like-mindedness. That was really the most important thing to me.
And we're in Texas, for those of you who are listening in. Kim is actually here with us live, our first live guest so far. And Texas has a lot of crazy rules.
Yeah.
Some things are weird in Texas. Like if you're an esthetician, you can inject, but you have to have a doctor to do a good faith exam. Like we have very weird laws here. But I know the medical director has to be so many miles away and a much more hands-on than perhaps other states. They can kind of be an absentee medical director. So that's always a challenge. And then you've obviously been hiring other people for, several years. So walk us through how some of that kind of happened. And you thought, I need to hire another person, another set of hands here.
Yeah, that's a big decision. I did start out thinking to myself, I'm just going to go out on my own and it's just going to be me. At least I'll have the control of my own destiny in this regard. But then again, you start thinking about, well, I do have things that I can share with other people. I do have an opportunity. I do have patient database that can support another person, and I want to grow and I want to build into someone. And so those are just some of the reasons why I started. But also when you think about the value of my time too, right? I can only be in the office injecting so many hours in the day. And so if I want to expand that opportunity for myself and for my family, I needed to start investing in other people to do that.
I think hiring people, if you think about a practice, 1 is 1 and 2 is a million, just like kids.
I love that. Yeah.
I feel like that's why I have 1 child, because at 2, I can imagine 3 and 2 at once. Oh my God, bless your soul. But I think about hiring people is the same kind of thing. When you're managing yourself, it's one thing and you have your hands in all the pots, but hiring someone else and learning how to delegate, which I'm not good at, training them, following up with them, coaching them, it's a lot of work.
It is.
How do you rate yourself on all these activities?
Not the best.
Me either.
I'm just being honest. I'm not the best, but I am doing what I feel like is my best. But again, every once in a while I have to step back and say, let's prioritize. Let's just make sure everything is in the prioritization that it needs to be. My faith, my family, my work, my career. But that being said, what are my long-term goals and what's it going to take for me to get there? I have to make some sacrifices here to make it work there, right? So hence nurse practitioner school. It's not that I wanted to go back to school. It's not that I really even feel like I need to at this moment, but it's what I want down the road. It's really what I wanted 25 years ago, but other people and other things always made me put that to the side. And so in the last couple of years, I've just been listening to things and talking with people, and just came to me one day, like, what's the one thing that you've always said, I'm going to put that to the side and do this for somebody else, or do this because this is the priority right now. And it just kept coming up. Like, you always wanted to be a nurse practitioner. So just go and do that. Make the sacrifices, talk to the people you love and say, can you support me in this? And they did. And so that was the reason I did it. Not really because I felt like I needed to, at least at this stage of the game.
We're going to talk a lot about what all that entails coming up very soon. Because I know that, I had so many friends, so many injectors are now going back to school. They're, in droves, frankly. And it's a big commitment, like with time and, to your point, priorities. And you've got kids at home who are in senior years and, are going to be soon. And there's a lot going on. So I can't imagine.
You got to have that support system around you to make it work. You really do. I really had to ask my husband, say, is this something that you can help me do? Because I'm not going to be able to do it if you don't step up with me, and understand the sacrifice it's going to take for everyone.
Yeah, as a single mom, I'd be hung out to dry, folks.
No, you've got support.
I'd be calling Kim Welch to help me out.
Yes, I'll be there.
Okay, so thinking through, as a nurse practitioner, obviously you'll have a bit of a different role in the industry, not because you're any different, but because it's just a perception of things, right? whether it's papers, research, whatever, but thinking back to, starting out in your practice on your own, doing your own thing, one of the things I get asked about every single day is, where do I find protocols? Where do I find, as a new injector in this world, where do I find how to do all this stuff so that if I go to court, there's an adverse event, I have like a checklist of things. Did you find some kind of a secret fountain of resources, or make it all on your own?
I think it's a combination of all those things. It's, again, I have been privileged to meet a lot of people in this industry, you being one of those resources and friends for me. And I think, you're probably one of my first calls to say, what do you think about this situation?
Well, that's
How should I
awfully
handle
sweet.
it?
I haven't ruined
Girl.
it yet.
Oh,
That's good.
man.
That's good news.
You're a wealth of knowledge. So, yeah, but no, I think that it's just based on my protocols and policies and procedures came from just my hospital experience and how things typically work in medicine, to transition into some of the practices that I had been in the past, what I saw work, what didn't work, and how am I going to make that my own? Again, I can't tell you how this industry has changed.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's quadrupling every minute we're sitting here. So, 4 or 5 years ago, we just didn't have the resources. We didn't have Aesthetic Next and all of those things that you're supplying for our industry. We just didn't have it available to us. So it was more a collaboration of just resources and experiences put together for me.
And I asked that question because I know personally from knowing you for so long that I was a sales rep for Galderma, those of you who don't know, on our podcast. And I think Kim has probably trained the entire state of Texas on how to inject, if not at least half the state of Texas, and injectors all across the country. And so it's so important. I asked because whatever you know how to do is what you're sharing with other people. And so I think the role of a trainer in this industry today, to your point, as fast as it's growing, is the trainers who work in the practices now, they're really like the protocol expert for all their trainees, because you're their first line of defense. You're who they think about, who they call. And you got super involved in training really early on in the boom of aesthetics. So how did that come about? And how did you become like the number one go-to gal for the whole state of Texas? Because you for sure are that.
Oh, you're so sweet. I was trying to think through that. I started training back in Medicis days. And I don't even remember when I started in this industry. I remember there were reps and there were doctors and there were nurses, but I don't remember trainers. I don't even remember that word.
I don't think there were any. I think you were the first big wave at Medicis.
Yeah, it was crazy. So when I was asked to be a trainer, I think I had the same questions that you said a lot of your audience asks is, when do you know if you're ready to be a trainer? What does that even look like? What's your first step? How can you get to be a trainer? I didn't even think through all of those things, but I do remember asking myself, why would you ask me? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. But then I think, yeah, well, I actually do know what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. I'm successful at what I'm doing. So all I can do is what I still do, what I started doing 10 years ago when I started training, and what I still do is walk into an office and say, what can I do to help you? What are you struggling with? What are your challenges? And what is our goal for today, right? If you have 3 hours, thank you for sharing 3 hours of your time with me. At the end of this, what do you feel like is going to be important use of your time when we're done today? And I just try to meet those goals for that patient or that provider and say, okay, well, that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm not here to share with you all of the amazing things that I know. I'm here to make sure that you feel like you're a better injector when we leave. So that's kind of how I've started it. More of that, I don't know, I'm going to call it a humble approach. Like, I'm not here to show off, I'm just here to help. And that, I think, has taken me far, hopefully.
And for those of you who are listening and want to become a trainer, I think the other part of it that you do so well is you prepare.
Yeah.
You can always depend on Kim to know her deck and to ask for feedback when it's over. She's always well studied. And I think the other part of it too is that people connect with you. You have a very personable approach. And to your point about, not showing off, oftentimes you go into a training and you see this really well-respected trainer who needs to like razzle dazzle.
Yeah.
And they lose the audience sort of touch, or the audience, personal connection, because it's too much about them.
Right.
I think you do a really good job of making it about what they need to learn and not about you looking like, like you're fabulous, which you are fabulous, but you let your experience speak for itself, not, the credential and all the things that you need to do to show off. So
yeah, no, I think it's more of that approach for me anyway, of we're all in this together, and I'm going to learn from you as well as hopefully you'll learn something from me. And if I take that approach, I do. Every training I go to, as the trainer, I learn something.
Mm-hmm.
And then what does that do for me? It makes me a better trainer because I get to take what I learned from you and take it all the different places I go. And it's just a beautiful collaboration in this industry. And I've trained people in my own city. Like, I don't have a problem with that because I really think there's enough for all of us. And I think that we're better together. We really, really are. And we need that openness in our industry to get better, I really think.
You know, it's interesting. This is kind of off the topics that we've talked about for this
Yeah.
podcast, but you said something that really sticks with me about training in your own city. Twofold, two things I'll say.
Uh-oh.
Number one is I think if people have an issue with that, they're crazy town. Because what you just said, you know, obviously there's enough for all of us. But the point being that if one person in your city has a dropped brow,
Right.
we all have a dropped brow.
That's
like
right.
if one injector is
That's
bad
right.
in your city, that kind of comes out to the audience, you know, of potential patients that we're all bad.
Mm-hmm.
Because she looks crazy, we're going to all look crazy. It's just like we see the shows like Botched, right? People think that Botched is real life. Well, it's not. It's one person's experience.
Absolutely.
We tend to not see this crazy Botched world. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if they're in your city and they're coming to you, whatever, you know, they're coming to this person that you're training, whatever they can't handle, they'll refer to you. If a person comes in and needs tear troughs and temples and they're a newer injector, they're going to say, I can't do that, but I was trained by Kim Welch. She can. I think you should go see her for that.
That happens a lot.
I think there's a great exchange of sorts there. So if you're not training in your own market, you lack that relationship. And also, what if you need hyaluronidase? What if you run out and there's an adverse event and Sally down the street hasn't? You're now pals enough to call and say, can you help me, you know, spot me 6 vials or something.
Absolutely.
So I just think if you're that closed-minded that you won't train in your own backyard, you're missing out on a ton of opportunities to both increase the market potential, but also to help yourself as a provider. So
yes, I
kudos
absolutely
to
agree.
you.
Thanks.
I should write a blog post about that.
You should. That's a good topic.
It makes
hot
me,
topic.
It makes
She
me,
got excited.
It makes me crazy. Okay, so back on track, people. Back on track. All right, so you've been training nonstop. You know, if we're going down the biographical timeline of Kim Welch, you're in your Grace Inspired Beauty. You're training all the time. And then one day, Kim and I have a cocktail, and she says to me,
I'm so happy you remember that.
yeah, she says to me, I think I'm going to move into this amazing practice that's right off the freeway. It's beautiful, by the way. If you guys ever come to Dallas, to Coppell, you have to see it. Do you think that we should do it? What are we going to call it? Like, we were just having this great conversation. And then fast forward, now you have this amazing practice that is drop dead gorgeous. The decor in there is so good.
Love it. Thank you.
Walk us through, like, when you made the decision of, I got to get big. Like, I'm over the hump. We got to go.
I think it was just that I was open, number one, that I wasn't closed-minded to it. I wasn't really aggressively searching for it, but I dropped my daughter off at dance. I live in Coppell, and so I live in this community, and one of the dermatology practices had joined the big groups, you know, and so they moved out, and I saw this gorgeous building next to my daughter's dance, and I thought there was a for lease sign on it, and my first thought was, oh no, it's time. Right? Like, oh,
dang
no,
it, I got to do it.
There's the sign. It's time to do it. So that was my first thought. But then I really pursued it and it worked out and it was just such a blessing. But yeah, I think it was just that for me personally, it wasn't something that I was aggressively seeking. It was just that I was open to it if the door opened, and it just opened right in my face. And so I called my good resource friend and said, what do you think? And she said, and you said yes. So we went it. And we did it.
And it's so nice. And I think you had to do some building and, you know, to build out and some different things. I think that's the part people forget about is you can't just get a great building and go. You have to like outfit the whole thing.
Yeah.
So there's like a construction loan for many people. There's just the whole construction cost and the timeline. And from the day that you decided to do it until the day you opened, how much time passed?
Fortunately for me, it was set up like a clinic already. And so we just moved a few walls, painted, did a few things. It was not long. And that was another reason I just, you know, it was a God thing for me that it was just worked out the way it did. My lease was up in the space I was in. The sign was on the building. We had contractors the next day. I think that it was maybe 30 days to a month, to 2 months. Yeah. It was pretty impressive. But I wanted to say too, from a business perspective, we keep it pretty lean and we kept it pretty lean. And so we didn't, you know, build the Taj Mahal right out of the gate. We really said, what can we do to make this functional and beautiful quickly? And let's get started. And then let's go from there. Let's do the next step, right? To make sure that we're profitable and those kinds of things. We didn't overextend ourselves. And that's coming from my, you know,
from the
risk-averse husband.
From the years making overalls.
That's right.
That's where it's going wrong. But I think one of the things you do that's interesting, I was talking to a new practice owner because I was with Aesthetic Record. We get lots of new practices that come in. And they want to, on day one, buy a coil-sculpting machine. They want to buy 3 lasers. They want to buy a hydrofacial machine. They want to have a cash outlay of $1 million plus in devices. And my skin starts to like crawl. The hair on my neck stands up. I'm like, are you crazy town? You've made no money yet. You've turned no profit, and you're going to invest in all these things that, by the way, are in your market everywhere around you.
Right.
You have no differentiator yet because you have no brand. You're going to lose your tail end on that. So I feel like you have done a really smart pacing of things. You don't have a million different devices and machines. Mm-hmm. What's your mindset on how you guys choose what you spend money on?
That's a good question. I think, first of all, what spoke to me in your question is that we've always felt like different is better than better. Right? So what is it that makes me different in this market? And if I just do all the things that everybody else is doing and buy all the devices that everybody else is buying, then I'm just trying to compete with you on who's better, right? So what do I bring to the market that's different, but because it's different, it's better than you, right? So that's just the approach I had to take. And I looked at that facility and I said, okay, well, we're going to do what I do best first, which is injectables, right? And I also have it set up for training because I love to train. And so that's how I'm going to start in this industry. And, different is better than better for me in that space. But that's just what we've done. And then we've just taken the next step. Like, so when our patients get to a point where I'm having to refer them out for all of the other things that I'm referring them for, skincare, right? So when I'm talking to patients about how important skincare is, then what does that mean? It means I'm going to need to bring in skincare. I'm going to need to bring in skincare that I believe in. And I don't have to bring in every single brand, but 2 that I believe in. And so, and then, the next device will come that I want to try and start, and it's just going to grow from there based on need. And that's our business model. And it's not for everyone. But for me, it works that we just keep it lean and just do the next thing that I feel like I'm referring clients out for, patients out for. That means that there's something that we need in our practice.
I think it's a great model because I work closely with a lot of people who own multiple practices and, lots of employees and lots of devices. And there comes a point where you look at it and say, gosh, if we could just make this all simple and do the things that we do best at the highest profit margin, could we go on a vacation at some point?
Exactly.
Or be able to go to bed before midnight, or these things start popping up. 2-point prioritization, time management of all this stuff is, again, it's all this stuff. You have to start managing.
It's going to cost you something, whether it's your money or your time, right?
And then when COVID comes and shuts you down, those lasers sit idle, those devices sit idle, and you have nothing. At least with injectables, you have inventory clearly, but you are the main, you're the main asset there, not the box of filler. So I think it's a very smart choice personally. So keep doing what you're doing is what I would say.
Thank you.
Okay, Kim, so we're going to move topics. We're going to move off of you as a nurse injector, clinic owner, entrepreneur, onto this NP program.
Oh, man.
Which all my friends are doing. So I feel like I need to go back to nursing school just so I can go to an NP program. Like, I'm missing the boat here.
That's so funny.
I'm not doing it, guys. Don't worry. Do not, no one at home worry. I'm not going to be injecting anyone anytime soon. I will build the training, but I'm not going to do it myself. So in the next 5 years, first of all, as you think about this NP degree being over, what's the first thing you're going to do? Let's start with there. Let's work backward. When you finish all this, what do you want to do first?
Take a vacation and not study and not think about medicine and not think about diverticulitis. I mean, things that I'm not probably going to use in my career ever, but those things.
I think that's when I was getting my PhD. I had to always think about what I was going to do first.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't think about that, I couldn't get through any of it.
That's a really good idea.
Like I had to know
motivation.
What's the first thing you're going to do? And that was always like my little beacon in the night, my little lighthouse, or else I couldn't survive.
Yeah, so. I'm like, just make it through today. Yeah. You can quit tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what I say to myself every day.
Yep. And I would say, tomorrow. It's going to end eventually. It's like COVID. It's going to end eventually. Yeah, if you just keep hanging on, or we're going to end, one of the two. But anywho, okay, so you obviously have kids, you got to practice, you have all these things going. Walk us through how in your typical day you're able to manage all of that plus diverticulitis or whatever other topic you're studying.
It's a good one. Well, as my kids have gotten older, that schedule and physical challenge for me has changed. But now 3 teenagers in the house, I have the emotional challenge every morning. So those are the battles I fight mostly now. But I just have realized I have to get up early, and anything I need or want to do for myself, it has to be done pretty much before the house wakes up. So I've tried to be a little bit disciplined in that. And then again, going back to school and fitting that in, I had to really ask permission, if you will, from my kids and from my husband. And I looked each of them in the eye and I said, is this something you can help me do? And here's the ways that you can help me do it, by allowing me time to get the job done. And so when mommy goes into her office and shuts the door and says it's time to go to school, that means you don't get to come in and talk to me about, the sock that's missing. So, that I've just had to set some boundaries, and my day just looks like that. I usually start with, some devotion in the morning and some exercise if I'm really feeling good about the day. And then I am a short order cook. My boys eat, half a dozen eggs every single morning.
Oh my goodness.
Just this morning I gave my daughter her breakfast and I said, tips are always appreciated, not necessary, but appreciated. And they just laugh at me. But, I love that though. That's part of who I am. And so if I stopped making breakfast for my kids or whatever, then I would lose who I am. And so I have said to myself, it's a priority for me to cook every once in a while, not every single meal, but I don't want to lose that part of who I am because I'm invested in school or work or whatever. So I've really had to just make those things that I love still a priority in my life, reading a book, cooking, those kinds of things.
Okay, I'm going to pass out over here because I'm thinking about my own life. And when I go into something, I lose any sight or semblance of who I am. Like I'm so far into things that I forget. The other day someone said, what do you like to do for hobbies? I'm like, I don't know, work, like build CME classes. Like I don't even have things I know how to do right now other than work. So
that's why we go out and we have girls' night every once in a while. And
I got to get to be more like you.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, this morning, my little boy, I'm on a call trying to figure out some things, and my little child is screaming in my ear, playing with his Avengers, and I'm on a Zoom call. And I thought to myself, knowing we were coming here, how does Kim ever possibly study and think through her day when all that's happening? Luckily, your children are not 7.
That's right. There's a difference there.
It's tough, especially with virtual. We're doing virtual school in our house, which is going to be really hard for the next 3 weeks. So, and your kids go to public school, right? In Texas, they're doing virtual school.
Absolutely.
So you're going to all be doing school together.
But Christians to the age too that you can have. I think our kids, when we look at them in the eye and we say, this is important to me. And when they have some structure in their lives, like I just need this much time. And then we're going to do this. And you're really good at that, Tiffany. You really
We negotiate a lot.
Well, see, there you go. That's how you make it work. And so you just say, you need to do this for me. And then I'm going to do this for you. And kids are unbelievably amazing at giving that to us, I think.
Well, out of the mouths of babes, last night my son says to me, I don't negotiate with terrorists.
Oh my goodness.
Because he saw it on a show that he was watching.
That's right.
We negotiate from time to time. But you're going to start clinicals at some point relatively soon, which
November.
As a practice owner and as an injector who's working in many ways full time, how are you going to organize your life to do clinicals? Because that's a pretty big time drain.
Yes, it's something that I, knew was coming and have been thinking about and preparing about, and glad that I've made it this far. Actually surprised, but here I am.
No shock to any of us.
I didn't quit today. I'll quit tomorrow. But so that being said, I have really been on the lookout for staff and personnel, and really been spending more time investing in my people that I'm working with, and saying, I need to know that you're going to carry on. Like if I'm not here, or there's a patient situation or a question that needs to be answered, this is just more investing in my team and knowing that they're going to be able to carry it for the next year without me being there, and really making sure that our branding we're all in the same sync, right? That we're all in the same line, and that I can walk away and focus on the other things for a little while, knowing that my patients and my staff are in good hands. So it's really just been me trying to make sure that everybody's ready for when that happens.
And I think you make a good point about, when you walk away, that the branding has to stay the same. And many of us get in the habit of hiring a person who's a superstar. Even at AR, we've been known to do this. We hire a celebrity person who's been doing this thing for so many years, or so great. Then they come here, and adapting to the way that we do it becomes very problematic for them. They can't make it. So I think people coming into your practice, doing things your way, the way that you've had it branded, the way that you've been carrying on for years, is oftentimes a challenge. And now that you're going to be stepping away, they have to be, the brand when you're not here. So I feel like that's a big call out. So if you're looking to hire people, don't forget about being a great injector is only one part of the coin. They have to be a great culture fit in the practice as well.
And truly, I mean, we can teach people how to inject. I can't teach you how to communicate with people necessarily and be kind, those simple things. But yeah, we've started in the last couple of years really doing, personality tests and leadership tests, and not because that's a huge part of the job, but it helps me understand how you're going to respond in a certain situation, or how you're going to respond when I give you positive feedback or whatever. And I just need to know that that's the kind of person that's going to fit well with our business. And we've talked to a lot of people that are amazing injectors that could bring tons of patients with them, but it just wasn't a fit for our practice. And so I've had to say no on those regards. And I don't think I've ever regretted that. I'm just going to keep pushing forward and choosing the right person to be a part of our team that fits our team and fits our brand is everything, really.
Well, and I'm thinking about, we have in my world conferences and presentations. I was building a lecture this weekend that took me, God knows, 6 hours to build a lecture and all the notes and things. You speak a lot, you're in a lot of places. I feel like that's the first thing you have to cut. Like, you kind of have to disappear from the industry a bit. For like Connie Brennan's very similar, both at ER. She's like, I have to kind of disappear for a little bit because I've got to do school. I've got to finish school. Right. I feel like you have to sacrifice a lot of the things that maybe make you who you are from a professional perspective to take up the mantle of going to nurse practitioner school. So what are things that you found most, that you didn't really think about you'd have to give up or have to go without in doing this endeavor?
That's a really good question. And I do think training has probably been the one that I've had to say, had to put some on the back burner. But again, it's something that I love to do, and it feeds my soul to be able to do that. So I haven't said no completely, because I know that that's important to me, and it helps me. Even if I make more money, quote unquote, being in the office, sometimes it's not just about money, right? It's about, I'm doing this for me. And so it's really kind of changed my perspective on why I do things, why I love to go into the office. I'm so thrilled to be at this training, because I know that I've prioritized to be there, and it's important to me, and it's giving back to me. And so, yes, but I've kind of had to make sacrifices in all aspects. There isn't really anything that I've said that I cannot do right now completely. And so I think that that's been good for me. I have had to prioritize, but not like completely wipe out. So, because I do think too, Tiphany, that if you are quiet for too long, you become irrelevant, if you will.
I agree with that.
I don't ever want to be irrelevant in this industry. I don't have to be the most famous person in the world, for sure, but I don't want to ever be irrelevant. And so I do think that I need to keep my foot in the door, not only for myself, but just to stay relevant in the industry.
So speaking of, thinking through not becoming irrelevant, which I think is such a big knowledge bomb for everyone listening, that you have to keep doing something and stay involved, is also being easy to work with. So even in booking this, you're like, give me the time, what day can we do it? Give me, what works for you, and I'll be there. I think part of it is when people go back to school or they open a new practice, they do new endeavors, they become so hard to work with that you kind of give up.
Right.
It's almost like when you ask a friend to a party every week and they always say no, you just kind of stop asking.
Right.
I think you've been extremely flexible and able to accommodate people in a way that most others have just been like, you know what, it's too much, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So maybe to your own peril too, maybe to your own stress and increased anxiety, but you've said yes to things.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of person that you want. I would hope that somebody who, this is important, that this is something that they're going to give priority to, and it means something to them, because there is authenticity in that. And so when people show up because they want to be there, typically that, right? And so I just think that that's on both sides of that. I get it. Time is money, like I've said, and there's been plenty of things I've said no to. And it crushes me to say no. I kind of have that personality. But every time I say no and I get like a little bit of that twinge of, oh no, I'm going to hurt their feelings, I think of all the things that I get to say yes to, or the people I get to say yes to because I said no to that. So yeah, it's just, again, about priority.
Well, I need to learn the word no. It's a hard one for me.
Can you see a running theme here, Tiphany?
Yes. See, people, this is why I'm friends with Kim Welch, because I learn all the things I should be doing to be a well-adjusted adult.
Oh, whatever.
One day I'm going to grow up. So as we kind of close out the nurse practitioner part of our discussion here, you mentioned that you went back to school because you really wanted to do it really your whole career and just have kind of put it on the back burner. But from a true practice business operation standpoint, what are the things that you'll be able to accomplish differently as a nurse practitioner than you can today as an RN?
So in the state of Texas, we do good faith exams. I mean, I think that's one of the bigger things that, as you know, the products that we use are prescription. And so we have to have a prescribing provider prescribe these services and products that we're using, some of them. And so that will absolutely change too. Right now we're hiring people to be the prescribing provider for us as registered nurses. And we have a medical director that we have that opportunity with. So it'll just kind of ease some of the financial piece of what we're paying for that service, as well as I feel more engaged with the patient in that aspect. And, you know, I have loved being a nurse, and I think some of the nurses that are in aesthetics are brighter and more experienced than a lot of more advanced degree type people. So I'll never bash a nurse in aesthetics because I think it's everything, and I think there's some amazing ones out there. But I can tell you that being in nurse practitioner school, it has opened my eyes to all of the conversations that we're having more than just about aesthetics, right? How the patient is, you know, their anti-anxiety medication is affecting them, and how that might affect their perception of beauty. And there's so much more depth to me now. I think that going for this advanced degree has brought to the table for me. And so it has been valuable. It really, really has, not just in name, but in my day-to-day practice. I'm starting to see more and more of myself, growth in my practice, and the overall well-being of my patients, I think, has advanced as well.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because as you were just saying that, I was kind of playing back the tapes in my mind of going to get my MBA.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking at some point in a chair in one of my classes of, I've gone from a practical knowledge to like a thought leadership knowledge.
Right.
Like I went from knowing how to do an accounting balance sheet to understanding why it needed to be done and where it fit into the overall part of my business world.
Right.
Like there was some shift in there somewhere where I was no longer the doer, I was now the leader. And I feel like that's kind of what a nurse practitioner, it's not that you're any better than you were before at doing the things that you do. It's just now you have a different perspective or paradigm around it that I think makes everything shift. And it feels different.
It does. And I can definitely look at from an aesthetics practice too, because we're wanting to diversify a little bit, right? So we can talk about, as a mid-level or a prescribing provider, we can begin to talk about, oh, your hormones are off, or, you know, what other services we might be able to provide for you as a prescribing provider. And I just think that helps me as a practice owner be just be able to meet more of the needs of my patients than just their beauty needs on the outside.
Agreed. I think too, for those who are listening that may be, you know, at a point of thinking about this, my gut tells me that in many of our states, we're going to have to really push to go to a nurse practitioner, PA, or more advanced degree. We're already seeing it in places like Louisiana and Florida, where you have to have a PA or an NP to even be able to inject. So I think from hedging your bets, if you're early in your career thinking about the next 25 years, it's a different discussion than it was maybe 25 years ago for you. Of it may not be enough because they may force us all to have some sort of a master's degree to be able to inject. So I think that's one thing that people kind of underestimate, is it's not about skill. It might be about like the law at some point.
That's right. And that was definitely why I pursued it, for sure.
Because in Texas,
it felt like it was going to make me a better injector. Yeah. I mean, it probably is, but not necessarily why I did it.
In our state's constantly in a battle with legislation about nurses. So yes, I think I think you're going to be so happy when it's finished, but so glad that you did it.
Yes.
Be one thing off, and your kids are seeing their mother devote herself to something really important with school and also with business and also with raising children and being a good wife. Like, you couldn't be a better model for your kids than that, I think. So
thank you. And that is one thing that means a lot to me and does give me encouragement when my kids will come up to me and say, Mom, you're working so hard. You're doing so good. We really appreciate that. And I was like, tears.
Yep.
Okay, it's worth it.
Well, we're going to end in our last part of our discussion here, really talking about family. And you do something that people can't do. You have a business with your husband.
That's right.
That you guys still love each other. They are a loving couple. They have a wonderful home where they're nice to each other. I've seen this in real life. You get along great. You are successful. So I want to uncover what you're doing, because many of us are curious of how to make that work. So what is your role, and your husband, Ryan, who's your business partner? What are kind of your different roles in your practice, and how do you make this thing all go around?
Well, we've been married 20 years this June. And so just that in and of itself, we, have been through a lot of therapy together. You don't get there without it, most people. So we've just had to learn from each other and really understand and embrace our uniqueness. And Ryan has a business background. I have a medical background. And so we've just embraced that part of each other and said, this is what you bring to the table. This is what I bring to the table. But more importantly than that, it really has been about the marriage and the relationship part of it, and knowing that whatever I bring to the table, he's going to trust that I have our family's best interest in mind and that I'm coming as an authentic person. And so we've just had to learn to trust each other in that. And so we don't always agree, for sure. And sometimes I get really, really frustrated when he'll say, call a syringe of Restylane a vial.
Oh.
No, that's not what it is. Ryan, get over it.
Well, that's on Instagram everywhere. I'm like,
I know.
it is not a vial. A vial is like a thing that liquid goes in.
Or, Sculptra, a dermal filler. I'm like, no, that's not at all what it is. But anyway, he'll talk to me about taxes and numbers, and I'll say, okay, but is this really important for me to know? Is this something that I'm gonna actually have an opinion on, or are you just talking? I'm fine either way. But let me know if you need a real opinion from me or not.
I had this discussion this morning, like, should I be listening intently
That's
here,
right.
or am I listening to appease you? Like, whichever one it is, I'm happy to do both, but just let me know which one it is. So,
did you say that?
Of course I did.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I have a very frank conversation with my partner often, and to that point. So thinking through that, because I'm in a similar boat, in some ways, but we have a rule at 8:30 at night. We tried no more business talk. That never happens. Like one day a week, we keep that rule. It never happens. It's business all the time because we both love to work, both love business. How do you separate out when you're raising children and talking about your kids versus a husband and wife versus the business?
That's a really good question. We don't have a rule like that, but I don't feel like it monopolizes our time either. Our kids are a lot of drama, and they just, we should make the rule about the kids that we stop talking about the kids at 8:30. But no, I think that we have found very strategic times in our day, or when big decisions are made, that we do have those big discussions. But again, I just stay in my lane, and I trust that he's paying the taxes, paying the payroll, getting those jobs done, because I just don't have the capacity to make that recognition of whether or not it's getting done. And for the most part, I'm still in it, but I just have to trust that he's running that side, and he trusts that I'm doing everything legally,
Yep.
So we just have to have that barrier and that line in the sand. But I think that we do pretty good on that. I really do.
Well, there's a book called, I think it's called Women Need Love, Men Need Respect. Have you heard this book?
No, I don't think so.
And I think about that book all the time. It had a profound impact on me, thinking about what men need, which is more often respect. We need to feel loved and cared for.
Right.
I think I need respect too. But as I think about what you just said, I feel like you and Ryan both are equally hard workers. You get things done. No one needs to check your work. And I think that's probably the piece that misses a lot of couples, is you trust that he's going to do it and respect that he'll do it the right way. And the same goes for you. Maybe that's the part that we miss for many of us, of if I'm working like a crazy person all the time and you're not, and we're in this together, that's going to be a problem for me. So
right. And sometimes I do have to come home and say, so what did you do today? I need him to tell me all the things that he accomplished, so that I do know that we're in this together, and vice versa is true for me. But I also say to him a lot, because I do think that's true. And I've learned this from marriage therapy, that I have to encourage him, right? I mean, this is a medical business, and he's the business side of the medical business. And so I have to look him in the eye and say, babe, thank you for what you do for us, for this family, for making this work, and for the sacrifices you make. And wow, I'm so impressed that you have that knowledge and you put that Excel spreadsheet together. I could never do that. So I think that there is that part of it that you have to just continually encourage and recognize in each other what we are bringing to the table.
So she'll be here next week with Dr. Ruth.
That's right. Marriage therapy.
Maybe I wouldn't have had a divorce if you'd come give me some of your therapy, Kim.
Girl.
Well, I think, so I had some questions and thoughts about like clear divisions of labor. I think you made that very clear, that you kind of do the medical, he does the business. Do you think that this will continue long term? You guys working together? Do you see Ryan going off to do his own thing at some point? Or is he like locked in and you guys are the twin towers?
He loves it. He really, really loves it. I do think for both of us, our goal is not to be we don't want to take over the world. That's just our business model. We want to spend time with our family and be able to go on vacation. And so for us, we are looking ahead of how can we make this work if we're not the ones physically doing the labor. So that is kind of our carrot at the end and what we do ultimately want to work towards. But we know that we're going to really have to be heavily invested up front. And so, no, I think he loves it. He's very risk averse. I'm the dreamer. I'm the one that says, I want everything and I want it now. And I want to give everything away. That's my other problem.
Yes, she does. If you ever were with Kim Welch, she wants to pay for everything for you. I'm like, Kim, put your money away. I can handle buying you a soda. It's okay.
Oh, you're so sweet. But yeah, so he pulls the reins in on me. And so I got frustrated in the beginning. I'm like, look, I'm the one making the money, so I can choose how I want to spend it. And then I just realized over time that if I want the carrot at the end, if I want the life that we want for each other, then we have to hold each other accountable. And sometimes I've had to look him in the eye and say, no, this device or whatever, this is really going to add to value to the practice. And this is important to the needs of our patients. And he just has to trust me and it happens. So, but it's taken us a bit to get there for sure.
But I think the part of it, what you just said for me is so important, that the person who's making the money decisions isn't the one who's in love with the device.
That's right.
I think that's where people go into a trap, is if they really want it, it's almost like having your own bias. I can make anything work out if I want it. Like, the numbers will work, sure. Ryan doesn't love it like you love it.
That's
so he's
right.
like, Kim, these numbers don't make sense. We're not buying it.
That's right.
Come back next week.
That's right.
I think
I have to trust that.
I think there's a big part of that you need to separate out the love of the thing and the money to buy the thing. Because I feel like that's where you get into some, at least for me personally, some murky waters.
Yeah.
Because I'll make anything work for a new pair of shoes or a handbag,
Right.
Not smart, Tiffany, but you guys are doing it. You're doing it right.
Well, thanks.
And what's next for the clinic?
We're working on our branding. I'm terrible at media and social media and all of that presence and marketing. I really am. Again, I'm medical. Ryan's business. That's a whole nother beast, right? And
100%.
The word relevant, like we're trying to stay relevant. I could say 3 or 4 years ago, social media is not my thing. I don't want to do it. I don't get to say that anymore. So we have to stay in the game and really understand what your giftedness is. And if it's not ours, who do we need to bring to the table to help us with that? And so that's definitely on my palette for the future, is I know that I can't just say, I don't like to play that game anymore. You have to be in the game, the social media aspect of it, digital
and
marketing,
there's
all of
so much, like between pay-per-click and Google AdWords and media campaigns and social media paid campaigns, it is absolutely a full-time job for someone.
Right. Yeah.
If you really want to optimize it. So I think that's a great call out on you to say, it's not my thing. It's not Ryan's thing. Someone has to do it.
Yeah.
Because we do it here internally. We have obviously a media team or person here that does everything. And then I try to do a lot of it myself too. We use Canva as our go-to.
Yes.
But I don't get deep in the weeds because I don't have the expertise. We
Right.
have to hire someone externally to do our SEO optimization. Look at our website. Look at our H1, H2 headers. That is way above my expertise level.
But speaking to that too, though, you can't just hire somebody to do that. You have to find somebody that has your image and your brand, that you are compatible in that way. That's one mistake we've made. We've spent a lot of money on people who know how to do it, but they don't, when they put a post out there that doesn't feel like me, or that is not a reflection of me. And so it's a lot easier said than done, that aspect of the business for sure.
And I have yet to figure that out. I won't let anyone touch our Instagram but me. I'm like,
because
it's like The Voice. I know what voice I want to. We're whimsical, but yet tech savvy, and no one can actually take that and make it ours from their own words. And so I'm a bit crazy about that.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying. It's a really hard struggle to find a good copywriter who also understands our industry, your particular voice, your brand, your audience. There's a lot of moving pieces there. So
we did work with a group that helped us develop at least a brand book. So colors we like, the voices, celebrities that, Audrey Hepburn was like my, emotion or whatever celebrity. So we're trying to work on identifying what that looks like. And then you have to, at least you can present that to different companies and say, can you identify with this? Is there a way that you can help us with this? So we're working on it.
So what you're saying is you have nothing going on right now and you're just sitting at home. eating bonbons, sipping
I'm like,
martinis.
oh, did she get that out of that? Okay.
That's what I heard, basically.
Okay, good.
So our episode has come to a close today. It's been a fantastic hour together that we've got to spend. Thank you so much for coming and spending time with us today.
Thank you.
We've learned about being a nurse practitioner and going to school, about working with your husband, about building a practice. And for the record, you have been a fantastic guest, full of tons of knowledge and tons of great ideas and marriage therapy advice,
That's
which we
right.
so appreciate. So we hope to see you guys next time on For the Record, your unfiltered view of surviving in aesthetics. And we'll see you then. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening to another episode of For the Record. This podcast is not intended to provide legal or medical advice. It's for entertainment, education, and information purposes only. For more information on this week's guest or to get started with Aesthetic Record, email us at info@aestheticrecord.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more fresh perspectives on disrupting the status quo and surviving in the aesthetics industry.